What if losing weight, and more importantly, fat, feels impossible no matter how hard you try? Have you ever lost 10 pounds only to gain back 15? Do you dread stepping on the scale because it never seems to budge? If you can't figure out why the formula works for others but not you, this episode breaks down the real reasons you haven't been seeing results. Join me and my special co-host, Scott Friedman of the Power of Progress podcast, as we lift the curtain on common weight loss mistakes and provide actionable solutions. You'll walk away ready to troubleshoot plateaus, optimize body composition, and create a plan that finally helps you shed fat for good. Wits and Weights community.
And the Power of Progress team.
Welcome to a very special co-created episode of the show. I'm Philip Pape of the Wits and Weights podcast for skeptics of the fitness industry who want to live longer by getting stronger with strength training and sustainable nutrition.
And I'm Scott Friedman, the host of the Power of Progress podcast, where fitness meets mindset. And for those of you who have trouble getting started and finally want to have long-term results.
Awesome. And this episode is being dropped into both feeds. This is a first ever co-created, co-hosted show where we are teaming up to bring you double the value.
And today we're tackling the frustrating questions of why some people struggle to lose weight while others seem to shed pounds effortlessly. You'll learn about the hidden obstacles that sabotage even the most disciplined dieters, from inaccurate tracking to the weekend indulgences that erase weeks worth of progress. You'll come away with a clear solution to manage hunger, maintain muscle, stimulate fat, troubleshoot plateaus based on the latest science on nutrition, metabolism, and physiology.
You'll also learn a framework for translating motivation into lasting results. We're going to peel back the confusion on how fast you should lose weight. Where does training and movement come into it? And the power of your mindset so you can finally make progress. Consider today's episode your blueprint for optimizing body composition and designing eating and training plans that flex to suit your needs so you can ditch the diet hamster wheel once and for all.
But before we jump in, if you love this show, then you'll love both our shows. And the best way you can support the show is to follow, subscribe to both of these shows on your favorite podcast app and get notified for future episodes.
And of course, if you're listening on Wits and Weights, I want you to go right now and check out The Power of Progress with Scott Friedman and give it a follow.
And if you're listening to The Power of Progress, follow Wits and Weights with Philip Pape on the podcast app of your choice.
All right, man. So now that we've gotten through that very awkward scripted intro.
Probably mostly because of me.
No. You know, we're experimenting, but I'm sure you guys listening are loving it. So we're going to get into today's topic, which is why you can't lose weight while others see great results. Now, if you're watching the video, we're doing this fun little thing where the topic's going to come up on screen, but don't worry if you're only listening to audio because we're going to say the topic before we get into it. And I'm just going to start with the basics. We're talking about why you can't lose weight, right? But the question I think you should ask yourself is, do I want to lose weight? Why am I trying to lose weight? Is that really the goal? And I don't know about you, Scott, like when you think of the avatars and when you think of body composition and what people want, do you want to be skinny or do you want to be lean and muscled, right?
Like lean and muscled, right? I feel like that's everyone's goal when they say they want to lose weight. I feel like they're saying they want to have lean muscle versus just kind of having this skinny build. That's my opinion on it, at least.
Exactly, right? And I think, especially for a lot of women who come into me as a client, I'm sure you see the same thing. It's more of a reframing to say, okay, why does the number on the scale matter? Maybe it doesn't matter so much as the performance, the fitness, how you look, how you feel. And so I always like to make that distinction, fat loss versus weight loss, right? Scale weight doesn't mean a thing if how you look, how you feel, how you perform isn't what you want. And, you know, I have personal experience with this right now because I just started a fat loss phase and some of my lifting buddies are saying, why are you losing fat? You look pretty lean. And I'm 190, the heaviest I've ever been, quote unquote, lean. And I see this with women all the time too, where it's like they can carry 20 more pounds and be lean because they've spent time building muscle first. So before we get into like, here's why you're not losing weight. And if you want to be in a fat loss phase, ask yourself if that's the goal. And then if it is because of fat loss, then we have to get into the details that Scott and I are going to talk about of calorie deficits, tracking, all the other things to get there. So that's my take on that.
I agree. I mean, I think that we have this weird thing in the industry that's like, hey, I want to lose weight. We just use weight as like the Kleenex term. Like Kleenex actually isn't the one brand of tissue. It's actually called facial tissue, but everyone calls it Kleenex because that's the brand. When people want to lose weight, they just call it weight loss versus fat loss because fat's not sexy or whatever it might be. But the reality is, if your goal is to literally just lose pounds and that's it, sure, weight loss is great. But if your goal is to look better, then we might want to be talking about fat loss. And if that's the case, the scale doesn't matter. And it really, you said it perfectly. It's just a narrative shift. We have to kind of change that story. Every person I've ever talked to comes to me and says, I want to lose weight. And I'm like, are you sure? Because if I put it, and so my brother and I, we're about the same height, same weight. So we both weigh about 175, give or take. I work out, he does not. Shirts off, we look very, very, very different. But weight's all that matters, right? So no, clearly there's something else there. So I think diving into like the fat loss and people understanding how to look better from a fat perspective, I think is really what's going to help people move forward.
For sure, man. And one last comment on this, and then we get to the next topic is really weight is a number, just like your circumference measurements, just like, how many calories you eat, just like how much sleep you're getting. And it's important in terms of, okay, if I have a goal and I know for sure I'm going to keep training and then I'm going to go in a calorie deficit and lose 20 pounds of fat, I need to know that I'm losing 20 pounds of fat. So of course, weight becomes a relevant statistic over time with the trend. So we can get into some of that, but I want to shift it over to the next topic, Scott. So I'm going to bring that up on the screen for you.
Yeah, understand the road ahead. I mean, it's building a perspective of what you need to do in order to succeed. So most people jump into a goal without understanding what the road ahead actually looks like. So my example I give for this is you're not going to go hiking in high heels. Like if you know you're going hiking, you are not going to pack high heels to go hiking. Very simple. But most people decide that they are going to do that and they are going to wear heels. That's very common when you're trying to lose weight or lose fat. I need to lose fat and get better at that. Lose fat because you think it's going to be this straight path, this straight line forward. It's going to be super simple. This is it. But the reality is there's going to be bumps and cracks along the way that you did not account for. And that's what causes a lot of people to quit.
Yeah. So what you're saying is it's not a straight line. It's like any plan. You come up with a plan, it's going to change on day two. I don't remember the famous quote. It was probably Winston Churchill that had to do with that. Like you have a plan and you'll get to your end goal at some point, even though it changes on day two. Whereas if you don't have a plan, you just never get there, right? You just meander forever, lost in the woods, maybe wearing heels as well. So,
I hope you're not wearing heels. I think
yeah,
I mean, if Winston Churchill said that's pretty far. Everyone has a plan to get punched in the mouth, right? Everyone has a
right.
plan to go
There you
do.
go.
I'm gonna lose, 40 pounds of fat. I'm gonna do all this, and then not realize that. Oh wow! For week 4 to 8, I didn't lose. And we're gonna use weight here as a catch-all term for the moment, but I didn't lose any weight for 4 to 8 weeks. It's like, yeah, like that's probably gonna happen along the way. And if you're able to account for that when you go through it, you're going to be less discouraged moving forward and therefore more likely to stick to what you're doing. And so that's kind of the emphasis of understanding the road ahead. Because if you just think perfect, awesome, things will always go my way, you're going to be disappointed. And that disappointment leads to failing. If you can understand, okay, throughout the 40 weeks or 20 weeks, whatever I'm doing, there's going to be issues that are going to arise. I'm going to have the cake at the wedding. I'm going to do this. I'm going to go on vacation. If you can plan for those things or at least acknowledge they're going to happen, you are significantly more likely to stick with what you're trying to do long term. And I think people just kind of miss that. They just think it should be perfect all the time.
And I think that's a perfect segue into the next diet. We're talking about restrictive versus a flexible approach, which is exactly what you're saying. It's like having that adaptability for life because life is going to happen, as opposed to seeing life as this anomaly that came out of nowhere that you couldn't plan for. It's going to happen, right? And when we look at the history, when we look at the science of dieting, it's no surprise that when you tell yourself, I'm not going to eat these 80% of foods that are available to me, that you're going to eventually binge and stop eat, you're going to fall off the wagon, so to speak, and get off track, whatever you want to call it, because you've given yourself such a restrictive, proscriptive approach to your diet, as in, I'm only going to eat meat, carnivore folks, or I'm not going to eat carbs, keto folks, right? And I would say, like, okay, if you love eating that way, I'm going to use that word. Like, if you just crave and love and you get up every day, you're like, yes, I'm on keto. Like, this is amazing. I get to eat keto for the rest of my life. Perfect, man. It's for you. How many people do that? How many people are like, I really want to have a carb here and there, or even on carnivore, like an orange would be nice. I don't know. So without getting into all the science like that goes back 4 decades, restrictive diets cause you to binge. They cause you to gain weight again. It's hard to maintain the weight loss, and it's because just what Scott was saying, you're not giving yourself room, grace, flexibility, whatever, adaptability. But if you say, you know what, I'm going to stick within some targets that align with my goals, but give myself 100% freedom to pick what I want to eat to meet those goals, compare those two approaches and imagine which one's more successful.
I might take a slightly different
Okay.
approach on this. And I
Okay.
like it because
Okay.
everyone, I feel, and me, I am very much anti like dieting 100%, but maybe not for the same reasons. I do think you have, let's just say there's 30 major diets out there. You have, carnivore, keto, which I've done a lot of these. Whole 30, I guess vegan's technically one, but that's more of a lifestyle thing. Whatever it is.
They want you
half
to
the
think it's a
people-
lifestyle.
Right.
Paleo too. They all say that.
Get in there. It's a lifestyle. Half the people that do it are like, this is the greatest thing ever. And they can show you research. They can show you data studies that's like, this is so beneficial for you. The other half are like, this was terrible. I didn't see any results. And the research they show you is horrible, terrible. You shouldn't do it for your body. And you can talk about keto as a great example. There's evidence to support keto, evidence against keto. What's true? It's probably somewhere in the middle. So my take on that is, first, when you're doing a diet, if you're not trying to learn how to do it on your own and you're consistently being restrictive all the time and don't really learn why you're doing it or what you're doing, then I think it's a giant waste of time because it's not sustainable long term. If you're like, look, this is what I love, like you were saying before, fine, go for it. I have nothing against people who do keto long term. I have nothing against people who are vegans long term. I have nothing against it because if it works for you and you can do it and you enjoy it and this is the goal you want for it, go for it because they probably do work for the right person. But the reality is most of these diets are meant to be kind of a medium to get you to the result you want, and then you stop. And that's the issue, is that the stopping point. So if you get to so the issue with keto, right? The biggest issue with keto, in my opinion, is people will do it. They lose. I did keto. I lost 25 pounds in 2 months. And I didn't gain it back because I knew exactly how to do the re-eating, the refeeding period. Most people finish their goal. Yay me, I did it. And then they go, wow, that cake looks delicious. Those donuts are great. They get back in old habits, and without that strict protocol, they gain all the weight back because they didn't learn it. They don't know that they did the goal. They didn't learn anything, and now they're not eating as restrictive, and therefore they're not seeing the results anymore. So that's where I take a little bit of a different approach of like, it's more of like, if you can go into it, number one, knowing this is what you're going to be doing, or you can learn how to almost undo it, like when you're not like keep the results when you're done, then I'm kind of like, look, go for it. But overall, for the average person, for me specifically, like I don't flexible dieting. I like to eat what I want to eat when I want to eat it for the most part. Obviously, you have to hit your macros, and we'll probably get into that a little bit later. But that's my takeaway of the eating. Now, do you have to enjoy it? I'm not sure I enjoy what I'm eating now, but I also have a lot of restrictions because I have a really bad stomach. So, I'm almost like I kind of eat to survive most of the time. So I'm not really sure I'm the best example of it, but that's kind of a slightly different take on restrictive dieting.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Sometimes when I get in a conversation with a client and I'm like, I make a suggestion and they're like, remember, I can't eat this. And I'm like, that's right. Wait, I should have looked at my notes on that.
You can't eat turkey every single day for a year? Like, it's a weirdo.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're pretty aligned, and however we communicate this may resonate with different people. But I was talking to Bill Campbell earlier today, as I mentioned, and he talked about the keto diet and muscle building. And again, it comes down to your specific goal. If you want to use it short term versus long term, all of these things. And for some people who are eating just the standard American diet with like 70% ultra processed foods, if you went to keto or carnivore or Mediterranean or whatever, it'd be a massive improvement. And it would jumpstart you toward, better health. But then the problem is people get in their mindset, everything associated with keto needs to be retained because it's better, as opposed to, I ended up, getting rid of like some toxic things I was intolerant to, and I got rid of processed foods, and I learned how to be more satiety, and they don't introduce things back ever, right? And that's what leads to the restriction, in my opinion. But all right. Anyway, we're going to talk a lot more about dieting and stuff as we go through. I want to get into some mindset stuff, Scott, because that is where your expertise lies. So take it away with this next topic.
So this is kind of the behavior change aspect of things. This is kind of where my bread and butter is. I love nutrition certified, fitness, all that stuff, same as you. But you definitely have the mechanics, and I kind of go through the mindset aspect a little bit more. And uninformed optimism and informed pessimism. What does that mean? So I'm going to use New Year's as kind of the catch all here because that's the easiest way to understand it. What happens on New Year's every single year, right? And I'm not picking fun. This is what happens. Is you say, okay, I'm going to jump into this. I'm going to do this amazing thing. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to lose all this weight. It's going to be awesome. Or my friend told me about this new awesome diet where all you have to do is order these smoothies and you're going to lose 40 pounds. You jump into something, you hear something shiny. You're like, oh my gosh, that's so, let me do that. I'm going to jump over here. Then you start to do it and you're like, yeah, this sucks. Like I no longer like this is harder than I thought it was. The results are harder. I have to do way more. I thought it was just buy this, drink this, and I'm gonna get. I thought it was all this easy stuff. And now you're realizing that wow, this really is not as easy as I thought. And you get to the informed pessimism. So the uninformed optimism aspect of kind of goal setting and jumping into things is I'm happy, I'm jubilant, I can't wait to do it. I'm so excited, I'm motivated to work out every day, motivated for this diet. Then you realize, wow, this isn't going to be as easy as I thought it was going to be. And then you get to the informed pessimism where now you're sad. Now you're discouraged. Now you're annoyed, frustrated, whatever the word is you want to use, because it's not what you thought it was. It's harder than you thought it was. And now it's like you kind of hit a crossroads where you kind of hit this thing called the valley of despair, where you have a couple choices. One, you can either jump to the next shiny object that you see. Another friend is doing a different diet or a different workout program. You jump to that with uninformed optimism and you go through the same cycle. Or you can stick with what you're doing, realize you may have made the mistake, but if you keep going, you can progress through. And people kind of hit that point, and so it kind of looks like I think it was a reverse parabola, I think is the word I want to use. For all you math people out there, it's the very bottom, and you have a choice to either go back up or circle back around. And a lot of people just circle back around. Yo-yo dieting is the exact example of this, where it's just up, down, up, down, up, down, or different diet every 6 months because it's just not working. It was easier, harder, easier, harder. So that's uninformed optimism, informed pessimism. And the biggest thing is just don't jump into things without actually maybe taking 5 minutes to look it up, look at reviews, look at what you actually have to do, talk to someone who's done it before. Like, how hard is this? Like, is this actually super easy? And I think when you put yourself in a situation that can give you a negative feedback loop, you are just significantly less likely to continue moving forward. And that's why a lot of people quit. Goals aren't specific enough on New Year's, or I didn't realize what I was doing, or I jumped in too fast. All of this stuff can be avoided if you just take a second to think about or ask an expert or whatever it is. What does this actually look like? What do I actually have to do for this? Get some information, and then you can make your informed decision so that you can actually start seeing results and actually understand this is what hard is going to feel like. This is what's going to feel like as I do this versus, wow, didn't realize that was going to suck. I should start over, or just give up forever. You burn out and you stop, and you're in a year later, you're talking to Philip, right? Hey, I need a coach because I gave up a year ago because, I didn't realize what I was doing and I got really depressed about it, which happens all the time. So just taking a little bit of insight prior to is super important.
And that impulsiveness, which I can be accused of, of wanting to jump into things, you learn to temper it a little bit, like you said, with sleeping on it, just sleeping on it and then getting the info. It's what marketers use to latch on to people and take advantage of their high when they get exposed to like the shiny object, right? It's like, I got to lose weight and I'm ready to go. And by the way, you're going to get a 20% discount if you sign up right now. And right, all of that, it's kind of taking advantage of that psychology. So the converse, like you said, is like, take it easy, get informed, listen to our podcast, which, we'll educate you. But also when you're trying to do new things, like don't do so many things, don't take such a huge leap, maybe dip your toe in and do those baby steps, do the, push your comfort zone. Don't go way outside your comfort zone. All of this is great, like mindset from day one before you even get to any of this and decide that I'm just going to do some crazy diet or program for weight loss. Anything more on that?
No, I think that's it. I think the takeaway is, look, when you're looking to do anything, it doesn't matter what it is. Don't jump into it. Take a second, breathe. If the offer is too good to be true, or they're like, oh, this is the last hour to screw them. Like, just take a second, and think it through. And then when you make your decision, whatever it is, stick with it. Hammer it out. Don't give up after 1 week. Give it some time to see if it can actually work and then push forward with it. So those would be my takeaways. Just think it through and push forward once you do it.
Cool, man. Yeah. So let's keep going with this train here and get into one of my favorite topics, which is tracking. And I want to say like 80% of the people that reach out to me, Facebook or wherever else, and have an issue, a challenge, like, hey, I'm having trouble losing weight, or now I'm a woman in my 40s, menopause, perimenopause hormones are catching up to me. I can't lose weight. One of my first questions always is, do you know how much you eat? Like, are you tracking? Just a very simple thing like that. And this can apply to lots of things in life, but we're talking food here. You can't possibly know that you're actually in a deficit if you don't know how much you're eating and how much you need to eat, right? Simple as that. So, one of the biggest roadblocks for people when it comes to weight loss, fat loss, is just they don't know how many calories they burn. They don't know how much they need to eat. They don't know, okay, how much fiber do I need, macros, like all that stuff. On top of that, it's a mystery what their life looks like in a given week, meaning they graze from their kids' plates. They eat the candy from the bowl in the office. They drink, 3 glasses of beer, not just one or two, right? Or it's a big heavy imperial stout that I love, and it's like 400 calories, not 200 calories,
But it's only
right?
one glass. It's only one glass.
It's a glass of beer. You're right. They're all the same. Glass of beer is
A
all the
glass of beer.
same. Right? So you have all these hidden calories, and then the weekends. So the classic, like Monday through Friday, I'm quote unquote good. And then, oh, I eat a little bit more on the weekend. No, you're eating a lot more on the weekend, most likely. I could go to the Mexican restaurant in town with my wife, and like, even having eaten a big lunch and not be too hungry, and I'll easily come out 1,500 calories from my dinner, from the chips and all the cheese, right? So people talk about intuitive eating, and I like to always push back and say, look, until you've developed the skill of knowing you, how much you eat, what you like to eat, your habits, your meal timing, all of that, irrespective of dieting and gaining, just awareness, just knowledge. Until you have that, you can't be intuitive in anything. Like, what is intuitive? I'm just going to eat till I'm full. I mean, you might disagree. I don't know. We can get into like intuitive eating versus the skill of intuitive eating that you develop after tracking. But yeah, one of the biggest problems is that you're just not tracking for some time to gain that awareness, even if you're not going to track long term.
Yeah, I mean, when I first started, and I think people would be surprised to hear this, is I tracked everything. I mean, I'm talking, I would literally buy a bag of baby cut carrots and I would literally count
Okay.
12 carrots out for 35 calories and write it down. Okay.
Okay.
I mean, I was made fun of all the time. It's just like crazy, religiously tracking it, like just craziness. But it built the system. Like I was able to kind of, now I don't do that, but I was able to build the system of, okay, now I can eyeball this. Now I can look at this and say, okay, that's a portion of here. I have now have that skill set to do it. I think tracking is monumentally important. I'll give 2 major examples. One, I had many clients who are like, hey, I eat great. And I look at what they're eating and go, you are eating great. That's perfect. I'm not losing weight or fat. I'm like, okay, well, are you sure you're tracking everything? Of course, yes, I am. Okay. Well, first thing is you're not. The phantom calories talked about, the one Oreo they pick up, or oh yeah, I forgot, track that. Right. People always forget to track kind of the nuances. They don't realize serving sizes are actually significantly smaller than what we think they would be. I believe, as I said, one Oreo is like 70 calories. I mean, just throwing it out there for everyone. Like that's not a small number, like, because you're not eating one Oreo, you're eating 4. So like that's a little bit different. I also think that when it comes to, people don't realize you can overeat unhealthy food too. I mean, healthy food's great. It's great for nutrients. It's great to fuel your body, but you can overeat it. My dad was trying to lose weight a couple of years ago and he was eating awesome. I was like, you're eating healthy. How are you not losing weight? This is perfect. And then he tells me he's having a bag of almonds every day. And I'm like,
there you go.
what you mean the 100-calorie pack of almonds? No, I go, well, I don't know, a bag of almonds. Shows me the bag. The whole bag is like 800 calories worth of almonds. I go, dude, like you're 500 above your maintenance. Like you can't. And so I think when you don't track, it's very difficult to understand what's happening. I'm not saying you have to be a religious tracker, because a lot of people don't want to track because it can be hard, it can be tedious, it's restrictive. But I find that when you start tracking, number one, you're instantly cutting off about 300 calories a day, because you don't want to put it on the sheet to show your coach that you had this, that you had the right, like you had the Reese's. You don't want to show anyone you had that. So number one, you realize, oh, I don't realize I was doing that. You start getting rid of a few calories. Number two, you're able to kind of see how much of something is, and then start to kind of build that quote unquote intuition over time as you kind of get better at it. So I'm a huge believer in tracking. I think there's a time and place for it. I think that at least track your main meal, right? At least get the main culprit or what you can track. Obviously, not every restaurant has, the tracking mechanism available, right? But like there are a lot of mainstream restaurants that do. So do it where you can. And the more you can do it, you are decreasing the percentage chance that you get it wrong. And that's all I'm trying to do is just decrease the chance that we get it wrong. Let's increase your probability of success. Doesn't have to be perfect. 80% is better than 50%, right? And that's
Yep.
what I'm trying to do. So I think tracking is important. And what I tell people to do is if you hate tracking, fine. Track for 3 days. Let's get a baseline of what you're trying to do. The intuitive eating part, I'm okay. So my first gut instinct to intuitive eating is like go pound sand. Like I think it's the dumbest thing because like how can you have intuition if you've never done it before or you have no like your intuition got you. I'm not trying to mean either. Like the reality is if you're trying to lose 50 pounds, you're probably obese and your intuition got you there.
Got you there. Yeah.
It got you there. So using that same method, how is it going to get you? I know maybe you're paying attention more, but I think you need to, something's disconnected. I think you need to learn the skills. And then over time, I think you can gain the skill of intuition. I think intuition is a skill, not just a trait. I think you have to learn it. And then once you get good enough, then you can start being, well, this was about this or this is, by the way, it's still, I've been doing it for over a decade and it's still difficult. I still screw up olive oil or whatever it is all the time and I'm overeating or handfuls of stuff. So I think that tracking is monumentally important because it's very difficult to do on its own.
Yeah, all well said. I want to expand on a couple of those. So just with the intuition and the intuitive eating, I find that when you're at maintenance, when you're just trying to maintain your weight, if you've gone through 1 or 2 phases where you have tracked a bit and you get a sense for those hunger signals and you've regulated the foods that you're eating, right? Where you're now eating the protein you need and everything. And you just keep eating that way, listen to your body. It's pretty good for keeping you at roughly the same weight, give or take, say, 3 to 5 pounds, once you've had that skill. But as soon as you try to go to fat loss, for example, which I'm doing right now myself, I've done this like 5 times, and I always forget the hunger and some of the other aspects that, gnaw at you while you're in that phase, where if I wasn't tracking, I would have to it would require some level of discipline and willpower above and beyond because I'm not tracking to say I need to sit with that hunger, knowing that hunger is telling me I'm in that deficit. And it's kind of a weird thing, but if I have the numbers, I'm like, okay, I got 1,000 calories left. I'm just going to plan it in. I'm going to sit with my hunger and work around it next day.
Right. And actually people take the hunger as a bad thing. That's a great point. I didn't think about that. If you have that hunger pain, we'll call it from one day of not eating all the way, as we do in the US. But if you have 500 calories left, you know that you can eat more. And if you're not tracking, you almost mentally like, oh my God, what do I do? Do I eat? Do I not eat? I'm trying to lose weight. Am I over? Just take half of that discipline out of the equation. And the discipline goes, look, if I'm out of calories, I know I'm out of calories today. And now my body's just fighting me. This is normal. And it takes a little bit of that stress off. That's a great point.
Yeah. And even when you are tracking, it also gives you a calibration against the hunger, so that if you're trying to improve the hunger signals, like if you're trying to, you can never outgame hunger, but there's tricks, that we all try to do. If you can do that and say, okay, now I know I'm in a deficit and I've mitigated hunger as much as possible, it's a great place to be. It gives you that confidence. As far as the minutia of the friction of tracking, which comes up all the time, oh, that sounds tedious. I like to come at from it from 2 perspectives. On one side, at least when I have a new client, it's let's not worry about all the different specific food selections right now. Let's just get more protein and fiber in there in general, right? In every meal, because that additive approach is going to start displacing other things and crowding out the other foods. And you're going to start feeling better and fuller anyway. At the same time, while you're tracking, I don't want you to get neurotic about it. I want you to just, if you feel tedious about it, reach out to me, because I will probably give you a hack that's going to make it less tedious. Such as when someone says well, there's 20 ingredients in my salad. I'm like, how about just track the one ingredient that gives you the calories in that salad? Or, type in house salad and look it up and just ballpark it. Trust me, if you're within 30%, that's actually good enough. Even the evidence has supported this, plus or minus 30% of what you think it is versus not tracking at all is actually good enough to get you to your goals. Just so people don't stress out about it. There are ways around that friction.
What's the most important thing to track of all? So calories, protein, carbs, fat, or sugar, fiber. What would be your number? If they're fighting you, what's the one thing you'll at least track this?
Oh yeah, it's between protein and calories. It depends because you can kind of know you're getting enough protein without tracking it, but it's a lot harder to know you're getting enough calories without tracking it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so
like, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
it's tough. I don't. I
yeah,
switch it based on the client. Depends based on need. Like what is
yeah,
their specific goal? And if they're like, if it's weight loss, I might do protein, because if they're not losing weight, then we know we're just eating too many calories. Versus protein, I want to reserve as much muscle as I possibly can. So
yeah.
sometimes I'll switch it up. But yeah, it's a tough one, right? Track to one thing, it can be tough.
And for people listening to your podcast and hearing me, all my clients track and we track a lot. So like if that doesn't appeal to you, you're not going to work with me. It's a binary thing. So like I don't do portions, I don't do, intuitive, I don't do just this or just that. We track everything, but trust me, I use tools that are very, very frictionless to make it as easy as possible. And to me, like if you get those quick wins and you're using that low friction process, that works together. But if you're using tools that are a little bit more frustrating, or you're not taking a 80-20 approach, that's where you can like shoot yourself in the foot no matter what you're doing. Yeah.
What's like a tool? Like what do you mean by a tool? Like an
Oh,
online like calculator, or like what do you mean?
no, I mean, so my clients use Macrofactor by Stronger by Science. It's a food logging
Mm,
app.
got it.
And yeah, I don't want to, yeah, we can get into that if you want.
Got it.
That's a
No,
total
got it.
episode.
Yeah.
Okay,
A
cool.
specific app. Yeah, gotcha. Makes
Yeah.
sense. I wanted to give a little bit of a takeaway, or we can kind of split up a little bit, but like the top five things that do like hidden calories. And so I mean, what were your take? What are your top five foods or whatever it is that have like hidden issues that people don't even realize? It's like, oh my God, this has so many calories in it. And if you either eliminate or do half of what you're doing, you actually just could see instant results.
Yeah. You want me to go through all five that I've got on my end, or do you want to split up? Okay. So yeah, what I came up with is first high calorie drinks. Super easy to change, right? You can go from Coke to Diet Coke, go from alcohol to lighter alcohol or non-alcoholic beer, which I'm huge into right now, is non-alcoholic beer. It's fun, it's tasty, and a lot less calories. And then the fancy coffees everyone gets at Starbucks. Like, come on, like
Oh my God.
it's literally a dessert.
I mean,
you don't.
it's 1,000. You're drinking 1,000 calories for coffee. It's not in coffee.
Pump that sugar in there. Pump that sugar in there.
Let's call it what it is. It's a milk smoothie or whatever. It's just like it's not even real coffee.
It is, and I think some people have like there's a little bit of a blind spot that there are options, and so sometimes it is just information. Like, hey, you love hot chocolate. Did you know hot chocolate is like cocoa and some sort of milk base that you can take like almond milk, cocoa, and some stevia and have like almost no calorie hot chocolate? It tastes pretty good. Like, hacks like that. So that's the first one. Second one is sauces and dressings. And that's a catch-all for like hidden stuff that's in restaurant food. But even when you make a sandwich and you slather some mayonnaise on there, man, if you weigh that on a food scale, you'll see like a very thin like scrape of mayonnaise will give you like 100 calories. So, just watch out. Like mustard's great too, and it's almost no calories. So that's number two. Yeah.
If you're in anywhere in Chicago, I think they're starting to open up more across the country, but Portillo's has like this house dressing that they have.
Mm-hmm.
Tiny freaking tube, this big, 250 calories. And they give you 2 to 3 of them to put on your salad. So your salad's like 600 calories and you add 1,500 calories. And you don't even realize it tastes so good. So yeah, I agree 100%. Sauces, dressings, just be careful because you'd be so shocked at how little you need to get the serving size. And most of the serving sizes are pretty hefty. I mean, they're not small.
No, they're not. It's mostly because of the fat, right? Which is very calorie dense. When I met my wife, she eats salads dry, like she doesn't use any dressing, which was shocking to me because I love blue cheese dressing and oil and vinegar. But what I'll do now is I'll get like I don't know if it's Bubba's or what's that brand of barbecue sauce. It's like almost no calories.
I have no idea.
And barbecue sauce on salad sounds weird, but it kind of tastes like that. Like what is that? French dressing or whatever.
Ew.
No, I know it sounds weird, but you gotta get the right. You gotta get the right type. It tastes like what's that orange dressing? French dressing.
Mustard? You gonna put mustard on salads?
No, I don't put mustard. That's crazy, man.
The barbecue sauce is weird. I am not advocating for barbecue sauce on salads. I also don't eat barbecue sauce, so that's for various reasons.
Okay.
That's
okay.
I can see what you're saying. I mean, my favorite dressing personally is balsamic vinaigrette. I love that.
That's good.
That's my go-to for almost everything.
Yeah. And one other hack there, just before we go on, is like if you have a salad, I like chicken thigh salads when I'm in fat loss phase because the little bit of extra fat on the chicken thigh acts as a dressing on the salad without very much fat at all. So it's like just coating that salad with a little bit of that mouthfeel from the fat is what we're going for, right?
Yeah.
Number three would be everything that's called healthy that they sell in a store in the middle, in the middle aisles. So everything that's a healthy packaged snack, not everything, but I mean, just got to look at the data. Just look what's in there. Could be much more calorie dense than you think. And I think we know this. If you go back to like the 80s when they started the low fat craze and Snackwells and all that to today, it's all food science is meant to be highly palatable and get you to eat more of it. And no matter what, it's going to compare, if not going to be favorable compared to Whole Foods, right? No matter how healthy they call it. Yeah.
Oh, 100. I mean, and we're also not saying, by the way, just because it's calorically denser than you think it is, that you shouldn't eat it. We're just saying,
Correct.
be aware. Because, for example, I buy this granola that is relatively healthy, all things considered, for granola, pretty healthy, organic stuff. And like, that's a serving. Like, it's so small, and I will find myself eating from the back, and I'll have like 6 servings without even trying. And each serving is 150 calories, and it's dense. You just have to be aware of it, because food companies are not your friends. They are not your friends at all. The opposite of Finding Nemo, fish are friends, not food. Like these people are not friends at all. Like they're hunting you like sharks. They know they know what they're doing. It's deliberately set to you. So yeah, anything that's labeled healthy or even low calorie is, I still think, probably a trap. Is my take on it.
Yeah. 90% of the time. Now, there's some interesting little hacks, Scott, that people look at me weirdly when I say it. But like, if I have a client who's in fat loss and they're on fairly low calories and they're like craving a sandwich, I'm like, look, they sell this keto bread. It's kind of interesting. It's made with like wheat starch mixed with a bunch of fiber. It's all it is. And it's actually like 15 grams of fiber in a slice for 40 calories. So I'm like, so there's some magic of food science out there that could serve you depending on the context we're talking about, right? So yeah. Number 4 hidden thing would be eating out. Just eating out in general. Because just like food manufacturers, restaurants want you to enjoy, have as much food as you can, have a bunch of sugar, salt, fat. So you say it's the best thing you've ever had, and then come again and tell your friends how wonderful the food was. They're not trying to serve your body composition goals. They don't care about that. They just care about a delicious meal, which is why you go out to eat, usually for the experience and for the food. So I'm fine if you want to eat out, plan for it and know what you're getting into, and then make some smart swaps or choices. Not to the extent where you're like suffering and feel like it's not a fun experience. Like that's the counter to this argument, is I want you to enjoy the slight indulgence of what you're getting in a restaurant, but do it in a smart way.
No, just I honestly never eat out. Just don't do that.
Yeah,
Like,
there you go. Don't eat out.
Food hack. hitting calories. Food. Don't eat food. If you don't eat food, you can't get calories. No, I agree with you. I think I went to a restaurant recently, actually, shockingly, and I think this will shock people. I think it was either a Maggiano's, like a cheesecake factory, something along those lines. I don't remember exactly, but the burger and fries was less calories than the salad. Like I'm sitting here, like crazy. There was an omelet on there as well for breakfast, more calories than the salad. And I was like, how is this possible? And we're talking 1,500, 2,000 calories for a meal that's like not even, it's filling, but like that's only for one meal and you have a whole rest of the day to go. You could eat your entire daily allotment in one sitting in a restaurant. So again, it's not that you shouldn't eat out. It's just that be aware of when you're eating out, that if you're going to do it, you're doing it, and just be aware of it so it doesn't negatively affect you mentally. Because that's the biggest thing. Like I ate out. I had wings the other day. I mean, it is what it is. Not barbecue wings, but I had something. And for sure. But yeah, so I agree with you. Eating out is crazy.
Yeah, and the last one I think we touched on already, which is just mindless eating. The grazing. Let me add nuance here, because mindless isn't just the hidden things that you don't know you're eating. It's the fact that we in modern society are always stimulated by something and doing something. We are working, we're watching, maybe we're reading a book even, but we're always like watching an iPad, watching our phone, doing something, eating at the same time. And that can cause you to consume way more calories than if you just were a little bit mindful about it. I'm not asking you to do like these complex, meditative practices of mindful eating that take, 45 minutes. You can.
Should we do a reverse? Should we do a reverse influencer take where it's like, and before every bite, you must meditate like Wim Hof for 30 minutes before every bite of popcorn. You can do that. That's
there you go. And then that one bite is going to just be so filling. You won't want another bite of popcorn. Yeah, I know.
Hi, my name is Lisa, and I'd like to give a big shout out to my nutrition coach, Philip. With his coaching, I have lost 17 pounds. He helped me identify the reason that I wanted to lose weight. and it's very simple: longevity. I want to be healthy, active, and independent until the day I die. He introduced me to this wonderful little app called Macro Factor. I got that part of my nutrition figured out. Along with that is the movement part of nutrition. There's a plan to it, and he really helped me with that. The other thing he helped me with was knowing that I need to get a lot of steps in. So the more steps you have, the higher your expenditure is, and the easier it is to lose weight. When it's presented to you like he presents it, it makes even more sense. And the other thing that he had was a hunger guide, and that really helped me. So thank you, Philip.
One thing you could do is like, if you know, like I tend to graze because I work from home, right? So my kitchen's over there. It's very easy to get to. One thing I try and do is basically if it's not on a plate, I don't eat it. So I have to pour it on a plate or a bowl so I can physically see how much I'm eating. Because if you just do it from the bag, it's just endless. But if you put it on a plate, at least you can see it. And I believe, don't quote me on the science on this, I believe if you put on a smaller plate, it'll look bigger, and therefore is quote unquote a hack to make you think you're eating more. There was actually a study done that says our perceptions will indicate our fullness on what we're eating. They basically did they had a control group study where they gave someone a 300 calorie smoothie. They gave one group the same smoothie but said it was 100 calories. They gave a second group the same smoothie, said it was 900 calories. And they reacted as exactly as you think they would. The group that got a 100 calorie smoothie was like, oh, we're so hungry, we got to keep going. And the group that got the 900 calorie smoothie, all the same calories, was like, we're so full, we can't keep going. Awesome. So perspective plays a huge role in that grazing mentality. Because if you just every 20 minutes go, you're like, oh, I'm not eating anything. But if you put it on a plate in a bowl and you see it, it could help you not eat as much. Just little things at no extra effort at all.
There's so many things like that. I mean, my wife makes the best desserts and she doesn't like a lot of sugar. So she just leaves out a lot of the sugar. Now, sometimes it's replaced with more eggs or butter, which is kind of defeats the purpose. But if in general, it's just a reduction in sugar, I get this this cake and I end up logging it as a cake, but then realizing I'm actually, I'm satisfied, but I noticed that I don't get quite as many calories as I think over the long term because of the fewer calories. You know what I'm saying? So like you said, you can trick yourself a little bit in that regard. Okay. So that was the 5 things. You want to go on to some more mindset stuff here. Let's just jump artificially, just jump to the next topic. Let's do it.
Perfect segue.
No segue.
My audience like, no. My audience like, no, talk more about the food stuff. Scott talks about this too much. So basically giving up too quickly, overcoming plateaus. I mean, it's when we are in the journey, it's very easy to get frustrated. I hear all the time, hey, when do I have to switch my workout? Or, hey, it's been 2 weeks, I'm not seeing weight loss results. Sometimes it takes time. And I think knowing that, again, like we talked, it kind of builds on each other. Knowing that when you go into it and you can prepare for it, it helps you set proper expectations. If you're 3 weeks in and quit because you don't see a change in the mirror or on the terrible scale right away, it goes into you're trying to win at something when the reality is there is this concept out there that I call the infinite versus finite paradox of health. And what it is basically, take a board game, for example, Monopoly. There is a clear winner and loser at Monopoly. Chess, there is a clear winner and loser at chess. Those are finite games. There is a determined ending, determined rule set, and there's a winner. It just ends. When it comes to your health, it ends when it ends. Okay, morbidly, like not great. It ends when it ends, but it doesn't end until that point. It's an ongoing cycle forever, right, until the last day. And so the issue is we're playing a chess game, but there's no end to it. And the issue is we think there's this end to it. So when people, oh my God, I lost 40 pounds and then stop what they're doing, right? They're like, oh, and then they gain the 40 pounds back because they stop what they're doing. So the same concept applies. Oh my gosh, I had a bad 3 weeks. Okay, so what? You have another 8,000 weeks to go. We have so much more time to go. We're playing an infinite game where there's no direct winning and losing. It's just about getting to where you want to go and maintaining it over time. The key is maintaining it over time versus once you get there, nothing magical happens. You're not a better person. I mean, maybe you are, but nothing changes except you just have to keep doing it. Now, once you get there, it becomes easier because you've done it and it's easier to stay, I think, once you get there. But don't go into a journey and spend all this time and effort. And number one, give up before you even make results because I plateaued. Well, no, just keep going. The one thing, think about any field in life, almost any field in life. I can't think of one that is more definitive than fitness and nutrition. There is a clear 1-to-1 ratio. eat less calories, lose weight over time, so on and so forth. Very clear directions. You don't have that in relationships. You don't have that in your
Yeah.
job necessarily. You don't, I mean, there's nothing that really is like that. And yet it's one of the hardest things for us to accomplish. But take that perspective and take it like a 30,000 foot view and go, okay, hold on a second. If I just do this over and over and over and over again, I might not get the instant gratification that I want in the mirror right away after my one bicep curl and look in the mirror and go, okay, one bicep curl. Like, you're not going to get that at the gym. But if you just keep going and you track over time, again, not terrible, don't go crazy with it, you're going to see results, because there is a direct correlation to what we're trying to do here. And you learn, you grow, you get experience. But people give up so quickly because they want to win at this game. And they don't realize that what happens after you win, you usually revert back to what you're doing beforehand, which is bad and got to where you were in the first place. And then they don't realize that you have to maintain it over time. So I think going into it, understanding that this is not something that you do to win, you do it for longevity. You do it so that you can maintain it forever. And I think that it's a very difficult, almost intangible mindset to have. But that's the true nature of health and fitness, is that there's no winning at it. It's just you have to get there and maintain it. And that's the game, is it's just forever. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, it's a very profound concept, and that's a really good take, because I want to be deadlifting when I'm 95 and then just kill over the next day. Like,
right, that's the best way to do it. I don't understand.
But so I'm going to extend that, because when you talked about tracking in data and awareness, and like, it's not an on-off switch. One way that I think we can make it more tangible, right? I'm sure you would agree, is the process itself. Like, where can we set ourselves up to get wins daily? I mean, daily, multiple times a day, that's objective, so that we know there's going to be something in 3 weeks or 3 months or 6 months, knowing that it works. Now, a lot of people don't have the confidence that what they're doing is going to work, because they've tried this, that, and the other for the last 30 years, and none of those have worked. Why should we trust Scott? Why should we trust Philip? And that's a big barrier to overcome. Right. And so that's where, like, other people who have gone through that, you have to look at objectively at the space, and not trust marketers and salespeople necessarily, but maybe talk to individuals who've gone through this. And then think about, in your own life, as you're listening to this, if you're trying to build muscle, like Scott said, the bicep curl in and of itself isn't going to show you anything. But if you curled, 20 pounds last week, and now your goal is like 22 and a half, and then you do it, like, that's objective data. You got stronger, that you can get a win from and be super happy about and celebrate, and then go to the next day and the next day after that. So if you can apply that to all the different areas of fitness, not in one day, not right now, like instantly, just pick one thing and then build on it. That, in my opinion, is a way to not give up too quickly, because you are seeing progress even on a daily basis.
I just think, I think the hard part is doing that. I think the hard part is because people just look in the mirror and go, I haven't changed. I worked out 3 days last week. I haven't changed. It's how do we get them from the, like, stop worrying about the physical and worry about what we can actually track right now. Mm-hmm. We will track the physical, but it just takes time. I mean, I told my client once, and I got in trouble for this, so I don't recommend it, but this is me, right? In a nutshell, is basically, it was we were working out for 3 weeks together, and they came like once or twice a week, right? So it's very much like, okay, good job, but like, we got to do more. They're getting mad. I'm not seeing any results. This is ridiculous. And of course, we're not even doing diet. It's just personal training. So I'm like, great. I tell them, like, look, man, and I'm a young gun at this point, so I probably shouldn't have been doing this. And I've hence.
So this was decades ago, you're saying?
Decades. I mean,
okay,
man, horrible. And I was like, how old are you? He's like, I'm 48. I go, okay, cool. And how long have you been like this for? He's like, since 25. Okay, great. It has been 23 years that you have been doing all this crap to your body, right? Your way doesn't work. Your way got you here. How about you give me more than 3 weeks to show you my way, right? Like, it takes more than 3 weeks to undo 23 years of crap. All right. And so that's the idea. This just takes a long time. You don't go into a company and expect to be CEO in the first 3 years. Like, it's not how it works. Like, things take time. And I'm not sure why we don't have the patience for it. Maybe it's social media. Maybe it's just this instant gratification that we need now. But I think it's being able to, if you can delay gratification of what you're looking to do for as long as you possibly can, you will see more and better results than you ever thought possible. Period. End of story. There's no nuance to it. If you can delay gratification.
Yeah, no nuance. And I think you alluded to a few times having support, whether it is a coach or community or something like that, who you can, even if it's just a vent and say, I'm frustrated, I'm not making progress. And they can be like, It's cool. Be patient. We're here for you. We've all been through this. It does take time, and okay, cool. I trust you, and I'll keep going. So, like you said, kind of doing it on your own is a little harder, only because you have to just be committed and do the experiment and get the data, and then see what comes out the other side. Maybe it didn't work. Maybe it will. Either way, it's going to take time to change your body. Cool. Why don't we go to the next thing, which is what is the next topic? Okay. Speaking of being impatient, one of the biggest mistakes, of course, with weight loss is trying to do it too quickly, right? And part of that is marketing. Part of that is, the restrictive diets, in my opinion, can induce very fast weight loss. The challenge there is that we're trying to lose fat, not weight, going back to the very first point I made. And there's a limit at which your body can shed the energy from the fat cells to turn it into ATP and all that, versus go and consume your muscle mass, right? And we don't want to have that muscle mass deteriorate and waste away. And I like to use these like visceral terms because I want people to know how bad for your health it is that we lose muscle, because it's already happening to you if you're sedentary. Then you exacerbate it by dieting aggressively. And by aggressive, I mean like more than 1% of your body weight a week. So like if you went on keto and you did it like all in, and then you lose, 40 pounds in a month, that's probably too aggressive, right? Because that's well beyond the 1% a week. And if you did like a DEXA scan or you did caliper measurements, you would see you lost some muscle mass. Some of it'll come back like as soon as you gain weight, but some of it's just gone until you strength train and build it back. So if you're having trouble losing weight, it could be because you're going too aggressively with the rate of loss in the past with your yo-yo dieting, and your body is adapting very quickly. The hunger ramps up, you binge back, and you stop dieting. A lot of those, yeah. So I'm kind of rambling, Scott, but you can bring me back.
I thought it was very clear. I mean,
okay.
At the end of the day, basically what you're saying is your body's going to resist the change. Your body's designed to stay in homeostasis, which is basically status quo. I don't want to change, survival. And every time you're trying to lose weight, your body gets signals that says, okay, hold on a second. We're losing energy here, because it's all about energy. It doesn't know that you had a salad and you're trying to lose. It doesn't care. It's like, I need this amount of calories to live. I'm eating less than this. We need to adapt our physiological functions to this new caloric energy expenditure that we have. So it will lower your metabolism. And if you go too quickly, your body is just going to push way back because it feels like it's dying and it doesn't know what you're trying to do. And you can't tell it what you're trying to do. It's just not going to work. And you'll have a lot of bounce back. We're not going to get into like, having to reverse diet and all that kind of stuff when you go too low for too long. But the idea is your body's going to resist you. So I think you said it actually very well. I followed it. So I'm not sure.
Yeah, you know where I got held up is in my notes. I was trying to separate the ideas of going too aggressively in your past dieting history with yo-yo diets to where you've lost muscle and it just makes it harder and harder to lose weight, versus what you then alluded to, which is metabolic adaptation. You go too quickly, your calories drop severely, and therefore you hit a plateau, and then you have trouble losing weight from that point on, which all valid concepts. I just had a conversation with Jordan Lips. You know Jordan Lips? He's a coach. What is Jordan Lips Fitness? Anyway, he loves to talk about metabolic adaptation, and we had a discussion about how it just exists. Like, you can't avoid metabolic adaptation, but you can definitely exacerbate it with your lifestyle choices, right?
I mean,
we want to, yeah. And so you can't, it's not like you can game it by, reverse dieting or recovery dieting. All of a sudden now you burn more calories than you would otherwise for the same weight and deficit. You're still going to adapt to that same exact level for you. And so the question is, are you doing it at the right rate that's reasonable and also practical? Like, you don't want to be going so aggressive that it's just, you're hungry all the time and you're miserable. And you have no energy and your hormones are tanked and you can't sleep and you can't train. Right? We want to be in that sweet spot where you can go a good 12, 16 weeks, whatever it takes, or even if you need a diet break, and then you continue to actually make that progress.
You mentioned earlier, and I wanted to kind of give an example to the point. So basically, you said that you're losing muscle when you're not working out, right? You kind of made that point earlier.
Right.
As you get older, it's starting to fade. So basically, you need to maintain your muscle over time. So to me, that sounds like is not working out is deflation for your muscle as inflation is for our money. It's not usually too noticeable, excluding the last 3 years, but it's usually like 3% a year. Similar concept of muscle over the course of the years. If you don't do anything and you just kind of stay where you're at, you're going to lose muscle. It might take you a while to figure it out, but you're going to lose a lot. And then by the time you're 60, 70 years old, like, it's like, holy crap, I got nothing left. And then it's very hard to build it back up. And so doing it now is actually a very important thing. I just want to kind of make that kind of mental
For
image for
sure.
people.
Yeah, let me add to that because we lose like 1% of our muscle mass a year from
There.
like the age of 30. I mean, it's insane. And I talk to people like, guys want to build all this muscle. Even if you're not enhanced, you're not on drugs, we want to build all this muscle. And I usually tell people like the most muscle you can build in a lifetime is around 40 pounds for most average males. That's a lot of muscle, but still we think, oh, that's it. However, I want you to add that muscle to the muscle you're not losing when you compare it to somebody else. So now think of the math. Those people are going negative. They're going below zero, right? And they're just losing muscle. And now they're 70, let's say 60 years old. And now you have like 60 pounds more muscle than them because of what they've lost versus what you've gained. And I want people to think about how profound that is. That's it.
Great point.
Mike-
Love it. Great point. Done.
Okay.
Segue.
Go to the next one. Okay. All right. What do we got next, man?
All right. I definitely stole this from Alex Hormozy when he was talking about this. He wasn't talking about fitness per se, but I love the concept of just look, when you go into this, most people don't think this is easy. Most people know that the fitness journey, getting healthy, it's going to be hard. And then they get surprised when they're frustrated. Days go wrong. They're annoyed. They're sad. They're hormonal, whatever it might be. That's what, and they want to give up. Take a step back and realize you knew this was going to be hard. This is what hard feels like. This is it. When you have your hunger pains, when you want to have that slice of cake, when your friends are pushing you to do something and you can't do it because you have this goal, that's what hard feels like. And so next time you're having those struggles, understanding you signed up for this. You knew this was not going to be a cakewalk. If you thought it was going to be a cakewalk, then probably got to change the perspective there. But we knew this wasn't going to be easy. So going into it saying, hey, look, like this, like if you're feeling like this is bad or this is terrible, this is hard to do, great. That's what it feels like. And it's also a sign that you're on the right path. It's also a sign that you're doing the right things, because if it was easy, then you're probably not doing enough. For example, if you're doing 10 reps on any exercise and you get done, like, oh, easy, done, great. You probably didn't do it right. Because if your goal is 10 reps, that 10th rep should be very, very difficult to complete. And the same concept applies to losing weight or going in 5 days a week and building that habit, whatever it might be. There's a specific point of impact that you're going for. And if you don't feel that intensity, feel that discouragement almost, or that annoyance, you get like, oh, I'm looking in the mirror. It's been 3 weeks. I'm not down any inches yet. Great. That's what hard feels like. Then you're on the right path. It's just a matter of time if you're doing the right things until you're going to see results.
Now, do you think there's like a hardness curve? So for example, there's a huge amount of friction at the beginning. Once you start getting some sort of progress, even though it's hard, you develop some resilience where the hard is, I guess you can sit with it better, or you can receive it better, or the fact that it's hard becomes a thing you look forward to. Like, what are your thoughts on all of those concepts?
Ooh, gosh, I have two thoughts on it, because I don't know if I don't think I have an answer, because I think it's both. I think that one, as you get better, I'm not sure it gets easier, but like with the knowledge and experience and even strength that you've gained through it, that you're just more confident. And that confidence of it is just like, okay, I know it's going to be hard. No big deal. It's not like, for me, like, for example, like I'm trying to lift 100-pound dumbbells. It ain't any easier than when it was getting to 70-pound dumbbells. It's still just as hard. My confidence is what's changed. I think it's more of a confidence question than a hardness question. I don't think it ever necessarily gets easier. I think your perspective of what you're doing gets easier, because you have now the experience, you have the social proof that you can do it. And I think those leads to sticking with the program longer and getting those results, even though, quote unquote, it could be easier or harder. Because I would argue that it's harder to lift 315 pounds on bench than 225 in almost every category, regardless of where you're at. Just because it's just physically heavier, just because you could do 225 now, whatever. Like, even though you're stronger, I still think it's just as hard to get to that point, if not harder. But I just have more confidence. I know that's a very niche example, because not everyone's doing that. But like, I don't think losing weight gets easier. Inherently, I think that you just become better at it. That's my general take on it.
No, that's a great way to put it. And one nuance on that is lifting weights. You mentioned lifting weights, right? Like curls, we probably all, as guys, don't mind going and doing our curls, right? But you take something like a Bulgarian split squat, which is like on the top 5 hated exercises or something.
So hard.
And it's like, what is it about those things And is there any way to make them comparably hard to the things that are less hard? But what I mean is, like, if you really love bench pressing but you really dislike this other thing, can we reframe it in a way where we can almost like this as much as bench press in the context of knowing it's hard? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't think
Yeah.
I've ever done that. I mean, I don't. I
Yeah.
think I just do it and I hate it and I know I'm gonna hate it and I
And
push
you
through.
say you hate it. Yeah.
And I say I hate it, and I think maybe that gives me the strength to get past it because I like benching and I hate Bulgarian split squats. I mean, in the example. So, is there a way to reframe it? Yes, I 100% think there is a way to reframe it. I'm not sure I have the best answer to do so. Someone probably smarter or more experienced than me probably has some sort of guru reframing method of, but I think also the person's personality takes into effect. I mean, if you talk to a Brad Ritter, who is the School of Grit, I'm not sure if you know him, but he did this amazing challenge. He's all about challenging almost like a David Goggins kind of deal, where they have that mentality of that they love to torture their body. I don't necessarily have that, so I'm not sure I can reframe, or I don't think they reframe it. I think they just do it. And
they just do it. And
right?
I don't think that's necessarily healthy for most people.
I'm not sure it's healthy either. So I think there's
Yeah.
ways to reframe. I hesitate to give any specifics on how to do that, but I bet you if you have that personality, you could. My personality is like, I have to do this. I'll see results. I'm going to feel good afterwards. I just kind of have to talk myself up. But it's about the discipline of just doing it in my mind.
So maybe the principle is, for those listening, like, think about a way that you could make it easier for yourself from a reframing perspective. It's something individual to you. Like, for me, it might be, okay, I'm surrounding it with all these other movements that I do love. I'm going to do this one thing because I know it's going to smash my quads, and that's what I'm working on right now. And then I'm going to measure my thighs every week, and it's going to get bigger, like, somehow to make it a little bit more palatable. But I could be doing this other movement that's more fun. Okay. So speaking of things that are hard, it's the hunger during fat loss, right? When we talk about having trouble losing weight, I think you talked about it already. Hunger exists. It's going to happen. It's a sign that your fat cells are releasing energy. I actually just did an episode all about the science behind it, very nerdy, very mechanical, about the mechanisms in the body of how, like, fatty acids get turned to ATP. The cool thing about it, Scott, is I didn't know this. 84% of the energy you release is carbon dioxide, like the weight that you lose, right? You probably didn't know that. And 16% is water. So I had forgotten that, because people are always like, well, where does it actually go? Does it come out in your urine or what? So anyway, hunger happens, right? So the question is, can we do anything about it? A lot of it is perception, right? Because a lot of hunger is emotional or habitual or psychological in some way. Like, if you go from a building phase to a fat loss phase, you were eating 6 times, now you eat 3. Those other 3 gaps in the day, your brain's telling you, where's my food, right? And that's not real hunger necessarily. There's also the way you set up your diet. I'm a huge fan of answering 3 questions when you set up your diet. 1, does it fill me up? 2, do I enjoy it? And 3, can I eat guilt-free? Like, those are pretty solid questions to ask yourself, that if you violate them, there could be improvements. So when it comes to hunger, things like fiber and protein are the classics of, if you have the protein in there, which should be fairly high during fat loss, probably around half your calories, depending on what, calorie level you're at. If you have fiber, which can be hard to get if you're not paying attention to it, right? And if you have enough nutrient dense filling foods, you're going to do everything you can to mitigate hunger. I do like other hacks, like, hydration or vegetable soups. I like eating harder foods that you have to digest. Like, don't throw the fruit in a smoothie in fat loss. Like, eat the fruit, eat the fruit. It'll take time. You chew it, the saliva, hormones in your gut and your brain will tell you that you're actually getting fuller than if you process the food in a blender. So that's just to get the discussion started. What else do you want to add to that?
That's actually I was going to ask you that question, because I don't actually know the answer. I'm like, does eating, like, for example, I have a smoothie that's probably 400 calories deep, and I can have I don't feel full from it, but there's plenty of protein in it, versus I can have, I'll just say ground turkey with quinoa and veggies, right? Whatever I have, which is 350 calories or something like that. And I will be significantly more full from that. All things close to equal, maybe more protein over here, but like, less calories, maybe because I'm chewing it, or maybe it's a different source of protein. That could be it. But I guess, is there something to chewing your food versus putting in a smoothie for hunger, hunger retention or not hunger retention?
Yeah, I think it's multiple factors. I think there's hormones that get secreted, but there's also the time factor. Like, you're taking time to eat it, and so it's getting into your stomach and sitting there and starting to trigger those hormones, leptin and ghrelin. But even like semaglutide. Everybody knows that from the anti-obesity drugs. That's like I believe that's like a stomach-centered hormone, just like serotonin is in the gut, and there's a link between gut health and like how you feel good and sleep and everything. Between all of those, it's pretty fascinating. But the more you could eat whole foods, take time eating your foods, chew them, it's going to help a little bit with hunger. Now, these are hacks. I always like to say they're hacks because at the end of the day, you're in a deficit and you're going to be hungry to some extent. So it's like identifying and documenting how that's occurring, because something simple like tightening the feeding window or shifting carbs or shifting, your workout or whatever could be just the ticket to, making the hunger just a little bit less. And the whole point of making it less is just so that you stick with it long enough to get to your goal. Conversely, if hunger is just too much and you've done everything, you're probably in too big of a deficit unless willpower is going to get you to the end, which is hard for most people. Like bodybuilders do that, but most of us are not bodybuilders. So yeah. What do you think?
I think you said two things that I specifically do. So people are going to call me crazy, but I do two things. Number one, to help hunger management. So I intermittent fast. I go from right around 14 to 16 hours. If I'm trying to gain weight, I'll probably shoot it down to 14 to 12 hours. If I'm trying to lose weight or maintain weight, I'm at the 15 to 16 mark usually. Sometimes I go more, but that's the average. So I have eating windows. It helps me. I stop eating at, we'll just say 7:30 every single night. And now before is fine, whatever, 30 minutes before. But what it does, it blocks it for me. I don't care how hungry I am. I know I ate for the day. I'm done eating. And I don't start again until roughly 10 o'clock the next day or so, give or take, or whatever the actual math is on that. But what I do is I actually work out at the end of my fast. So from like 7:30 to 9:30, I'm at the gym, not for the full 2 hours, but I do sauna. So everyone calm down. It's not a 2-hour workout. I'm not saying 2 hours. Gotta do saunas. And I work out during that. So I work out fasted. And then I get home, I'm feeling great. And then I break the fast with a nice high protein / carb meal to kind of help with the hunger that I'm having. And then I kind of get to the rest of the day. So I think having those windows of eating, not even from any sort of metabolic, physiological thing, just from a routine structure standpoint, is so valuable because it's a rule. And it's black and white. Don't eat after this time. Don't eat before this time. Again, you're on vacation. I'm not, but regularly speaking, it really helps maintain it. Your body adapts to it. Or again, after 2 weeks, if you're like dying from it, of course, like we got to switch things up. But overall, if you can kind of find that sweet spot, I think it's very helpful when it comes to hunger management.
That's huge. The principle of it, right? Like people don't have to fast per se, just be routine about it and have a fixed feeding window. And you might go so far as to like schedule it in at first. It's just like tracking your food. It might sound a little neurotic, but if you've been all over the place, like just putting on your calendar, like this is when I eat, and do that for a week or two and then you're in a routine and there you go. Your body, actually your metabolic rate, this is a valid point you brought up. Physiologically, your metabolic rate will actually downregulate just a bit if you're not in a routine because of that like unpredictability of the food supply to your body. So it's like, I got to conserve calories. Yeah. It's so many things can impact your metabolism. And that's why when we talk about dieting and weight loss and fat loss, like a lot of it is about food, but a lot of it is about your lifestyle choices to make eating food easier and able to eat more of it, as you're losing that weight. So yeah, other than that, I mean, for hunger, I would say swapping foods out the more you get into a fat loss phase where calories are tight, where you hardly notice a difference, like refined versus white carbs, or what did I have in here in my notes? Oh, these were all ultra processed foods that, this was like soda and candy. You could have diet soda. Like I'm not against diet soda. I have no problem. Aspartame is not going to kill you. That's my understanding of the evidence. Just it's better than regular soda or, in terms of like trying to manage your calories and sugar intake and whatnot. Alcohol is another one, again, if you don't want to cut it out completely, be smart about it. Drink light beer, drink fewer times a week. Do non-alcoholic, which is not alcohol, but it tastes like it. So yeah, that's it. We can go on about hunger. We can go to the next topic.
This one will be quick. The next one will be quick.
All right. Go ahead.
Basically not moving enough. I think this one's pretty simple is just move. I think there was a study done that was like basically if you walk for a brisk walk for 20 minutes a day, it'll decrease your chances for any kind of long-term illness or disease by like upwards of 30%. I mean, it was a crazy amount. Walk. You burn more calories when you walk. You're going to feel better when you walk. You're going to lose more weight when you walk. You're going to be using your body, moving your body. There's so much benefits to moving, even if it's not. Again, I recommending resistance training, but even if it's not that, just moving itself is so valuable on a regular basis. And it's going to help your mood, which, for example, if you ever try to make a decision while you're sitting on the couch, don't. I always tell people, especially if that decision is not aligned with your goals. So if you're like, oh, I'm so hungry, I'm going to go, I have this popcorn right here. Before you eat it, stand up, walk around for 10 seconds, and then ask yourself the same question. I would argue that your answer is going to change a little bit, because when you're not moving, everything just kind of, it's like stagnant air. It just kind of sits there. But when you're moving, things are working. You have more oxygen into your head. Like, there's a lot of things that happen in that. And so I think moving is so significant from a multifaceted approach that just got to move. Just try and move for 20 minutes every single day. Do something. If you're starting from nothing, that is the best piece of advice, because just you got to get going. And that it's just shown to help you in so many different areas, not just weight loss, but in every area.
Yeah, there's not much more to add to that. I mean, walking helps with your mental health. Like you said, it helps with your, just getting calories to your brain. Your brain consumes 20% of the energy of your body, and it's very bioenergetic. A lot of people that I know are lifters, and they just lift, but then they won't move. And they're actually independent things, like lifting weights for acutely stressed sessions, and then not moving at all. There's still a lot of health consequences to that. You've got to move. So agree. There's not much more to add to that. We can go on to training.
All right.
So training, one of my fun topics here is, of course, when you're in a fat loss phase, because again, we're talking about losing weight, and we don't want to lose weight. We want to lose fat. Like, we want to lose body mass, but we want that body mass to be fat. And the only way that's going to happen is if you have sufficient muscle building stimulus. You have to tell your body that you are at least attempting to build muscle in the attempt to at least preserve the muscle, maintain the muscle. The cool thing is that it takes a lot less volume, like training volume, to maintain muscle than it does to build muscle. So when you go in a fat loss phase, the wrong approach is to say, I need to burn fat and burn calories, therefore I'm going to do more. Like, I'm going to do more reps and I'm going to do more volume. It's actually the opposite. Like, you could do almost less as long as you keep the load pretty intense, train close to failure. Like Scott mentioned earlier, like, you got to feel like it's hard, and it might even feel harder because you're in fat loss. And that's a very efficient way to work out. Like 3-4 days a week, whatever your program says. You might even cut the number of movements and just go heavy. And then now you have all this recovery time to, take advantage of the fewer resources you have, but you're still going to hold on to that muscle, which is what we're trying to do.
What would you say? I'm curious to hear the answer on this one. So let's say in a normal muscle building phase, and you're trying to build specifically muscle, we believe that the best ratio of sets per week at whatever the intensity is about 10 to 20, depending on the person and their training level. If you're in a fat loss phase, what would you say the sets per week for a muscle would be in order to at least be, what's that range?
I mean, if you go by the studies on volume for maintaining muscle, it could be as low as like a quarter to half of your volume, but I wouldn't cut it by that much.
Of course.
In practice.
Yeah.
That's more of like, if you've been training a long time and now you want to do other pursuits and you don't want to spend so much time in the gym kind of thing. But when you're training, I would just say, do what you're already doing and gauge the biofeedback, in those first few weeks.
How you feel.
But the most important thing, honestly, is going to be the stimulus to fatigue, but also the results with your lifts. Meaning, if your lifts are pretty much maintaining more or less, you're probably fine, right? You're going to lose strength, but you're probably not going to lose much muscle if you're doing it that way.
And I think a point from a practical point is when you're losing weight. So if you're losing weight and you can maintain, so let's say you do 100 pounds on whatever the lift is, and you keep doing 100 pounds at 10 reps or whatever the rep range is, right? You're actually gaining muscle because you're losing weight. So if let's say you weighed 100 pounds and you're lifting 100 pounds. Now you weigh 99 pounds and you're lifting 100 pounds. That ratio it's slightly different. That means you're stronger than you were before. Now you're 98, 97, 96. Now, eventually what's going to happen is at a certain point, because it happens to all of us, unless you're just a bodybuilder or really, really good at this, like the lift is going to go down. So you could expect the lift to decrease, but you should not do that on purpose. It's just because you're not strong enough anymore, because you are going to lose some muscle when you're losing weight. The idea is to lose as little as humanly possible, and that's how you're going to see it. So if you're losing weight and your lifts are staying relatively the same, that's great. You should not, I repeat this 100 times. Everyone asks this question. If you are in fat loss phase, do not deliberately decrease the weight that you are training at. You want to stay there until you cannot stay there. For some reason, there's this I guess, myth out there that's like, oh, I'm in a fat loss phase, I need to decrease the weight that I'm lifting, which
Right.
makes no
Right.
sense to me. No, like nothing changes other than it's going to be harder to maintain that, in my perspective.
Yeah, and you hit on, there's some counterintuitive things that people just aren't familiar with, like the fact that your relative strength could go up as you're losing weight. I mean, my chin ups and pull ups start to fly when I'm starting to lose weight initially, right? Because I'm just losing weight on my body.
Yeah.
But what was the other thing I was going to say about that? That was counterintuitive. Man, it slipped my mind. Oh, these conversations, it's like I have three things in the buffer, and I maybe get to one or two. You know what I'm saying? Yes, I know what it was. Is recovery and volume. So again, counterintuitively, you may find it more beneficial, especially if you're older and have like recovery, more limited recovery, to work more days a week, but shorter sessions during fat loss. Like I've seen that be very successful for people to work. Like if you're normally doing 3 or 4, now you go to 5 or 6, but they're like half-hour sessions with 3 movements. And now you're spreading out that fatigue and never overstressing yourself from like an energy perspective with the fewer calories coming in. Not for everybody though, like especially women can handle more recovery than men, but I've seen this be successful with men too. So just one of those cool little things.
I like it.
Cool.
I mentioned point of impact earlier, but basically just make sure you're training whatever rep range you're doing. That last rep, it should be. I'm not a huge train to failure guy. I think training near failure is more effective, at least for the average person. I'm not talking about the advanced lifters, but so like whatever you're doing, if you're doing 10 reps and you're in the weight loss phase and you can do more, you probably should do more, and that's probably the wrong weight or the wrong rep range to be in.
Yeah. And one last thing. I mean, no, I agree about the RIR, reps in reserve. Like isolation movements, go for it. Go to failure, cheater reps, drop sets, whatever intensity stuff you want to do. But like the big lifts, 1 to 2, maybe even 3 from failure, depending on what you're doing. One thing we didn't cover, I don't know if we would have done it on the movement section, is just cardio in general. Cardio can be a huge variable when it comes to fat loss in terms of a negative, in my opinion. Like doing too much cardio during fat loss can raise the stress on your body and also make it harder to lose weight. So I know it didn't seem like we had that in the list. Very important, ladies especially, who love to do the spin class, the boot camps, the F45, all this stuff. Fat loss is the last point. Fat loss is the last phase where you want to actually think exercise equals calorie burn. No, don't do that. Please don't think exercise equals calorie burn. Walking and movement and being active, that can contribute to that. But if you are running a lot and now you're affecting your joints and you're tearing up muscles a bit more and you're impeding recovery, now your body says, well, I need to recover from that. So I'm not going to have as much to recover from lifting, for example, and I'm not going to have enough to keep your metabolic rate where it needs to be. So now all of a sudden you start burning fewer and fewer calories. That's not to say you can't have some like medium intensity cardio in there for cardiovascular health and a little bit of calorie burn, but it's got to be, moderated.
Yeah. The way I think about it is just like, don't do any more than you normally would do because you're trying to burn fat. If if you're on the treadmill for 30 minutes, that's your fun thing to do. You play basketball or pickleball, which is the new thing. Go do it. Understand though, first and foremost, it's going to put you in a larger deficit. And that's where you get into trouble with these. And that's what I think the issue is, you get into these large deficits where your body will react negatively, either will fight you really hard or will lower the amount of calories it's going to burn in a day. And therefore you get into this cycle of, okay, I'm burning 500 calories in the treadmill and I'm only netting 1,200 calories a day eating, like total eating wise. Your body's going to slowly shut down. And then you think, I got to eat less or burn more. And then you're only putting in 1,000 and then 800 and then you're not losing any more weight. And you get into this kind of cycle and it's not good for your body. So, you want to stick to I think it's a 5 to 10% deficit from your caloric maintenance part, which you can find online, whatever, with your coach, whatever it is. And then from there, just kind of try and maintain that. So whatever you do for that, that's what you should do. And then eat back the calories. So I actually, in a fat loss phase, I actually use cardio to eat more so that I can so that I have I do net deficit. So if I have to eat, let's say 1,800 calories, what I have to eat to lose a pound a week, if I do 300 calories on the treadmill, I know I can eat 300 more calories that day to net my 1,800. So I kind of do a dual shifter I use both kind of ranges to kind of get me there. It can be trouble if you don't track it properly, but I do find that is
Yeah.
valuable for some people.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Because I wouldn't use it on a day-to-day basis necessarily like that, but I could
Use it
see
weekly.
incorporate, weekly, where like now you've seen how your expenditure, if it's actually gone up and you can increase your calories and then you kind of take advantage. But, if you're in tune with this stuff, that's the point. If you're in tune, you're watching your numbers and your weight's going where you want it to go, then great. You're doing everything you want to do. So let's go to the last thing, because they're all kind of related to stress on the body overall, causing a change in your metabolic rate. What's the issue here with sleep and stress?
Well, one of the biggest things is that you could be doing everything right, and if you're not sleeping enough, your body, there's a lot of intangible things in your body we don't see. They're invisible to us that are currently operating on every single day, and a lot of things will happen if you don't sleep well. So, I mean, if you don't sleep enough, right, increases irritability, will increase hunger. You might store more fat because of it. It reduces expenditure. Like, there's so many things that are going to happen if you're not sleeping properly. So the idea is, if you actually also, I think if you do too much high intensity cardio, I believe there's a stress threshold that we have, where if you do too much stress in the body in one day, it's very difficult to sleep as well. So there's another thing. There's, if you're just hammering it, like, you might find that you're having trouble sleeping, which then in turn will make it harder to lose weight, because other aspects of not having enough sleep are negative. So a lot of things there when it comes to not sleeping enough. So having that kind of self-awareness when you're doing this is pretty important, because if you're not sleeping well and you know you're not sleeping well, trying to identify, okay, what am I doing that's causing this lack of sleep is important. Is it coming from doing too much, or is it coming from more of an habitual routine basis? And what I mean by that is, what are you doing before you're going to sleep? Are you, watching TV? Are you eating? Are you drinking? What's the activity before bed? What are you doing? And then if you can identify what's happening, can we reduce or take away something to see if that helps you sleep? So, for example, I got the Aura Ring, not a paid advertisement, so do it at your own
I do as well.
Do it at your risk, it if you want.
All nutrition coaches have one, right?
Right. I love it. It's interesting. I think I give it like a B on the scale, like,
Sure.
85 out of 100. I think that's where I would scale it right now from the information. But I use it because it tracks my sleep. And some nights, like, hey man, your resting heart rate was super high last night. Like, try doing X, Y, and Z instead. So what are some things that get my heart rate going? Number one, if I eat too late, which again on the weekend or something, if I don't follow my structured routine, that will happen. So I believe, and you might have better knowledge on this than I will, I tell people try not to eat roughly an hour and a half, 2 hours before you go to sleep, right?
That's
like
good.
If you're eating 30 minutes before bed, that could cause issues. Like, that might cause you to be up longer and not get good sleep. Are you drinking before bed? That might could cause you to wake up more times than you want. I think waking up once is probably fine during the night. I don't think that's an issue at all, but multiple times, that could cause a disruption and get you worse sleep. Are you watching TV? And if you're watching TV, that stimulation, just the stimulation itself, so phone, TV, any sort of stimulation, any argument you have, whatever, like, your brain's up and going. The second thing with that is blue light. How much blue light are you pushing into your eyeballs? I have, I'm trying to look around. I got blue light glasses over here. So if I'm watching TV late or on the computer late, I put these on and it takes away the blue light. So at least I get rid of that, because I know blue light in me, that's what causes me to have trouble sleeping. So there's a lot of things that you might be doing that you don't realize that are inhibiting your ability to get good sleep, which then silently, secretly, phantomly inhibits your ability to lose weight or lose fat in the long run. And you wouldn't, and no one would ever correlate watching an hour of TV, a high intensity drama TV show that gets your heart rate going, to bad sleep, to then not losing fat, which it's kind of a loose correlation, but it is there. And so making sure that you can identify any of those stressors can be very important if you're struggling with it.
Yeah, I think you covered most of the stuff. Like, I mean, I know people have heard the sleep hacks a million times on all sorts of podcasts, right? But there are always subtle things that might work for you. And there he goes, putting on the glasses. I have the amber ones that I wear at night, and sometimes I just fall asleep on the couch wearing those things. They work. So what Scott mentioned, right? Like, is poor sleep the symptom of another cause, or is it the sleep routine itself? He brought up a bunch of things. I would just say, like, also, if you can find a way to let your mind unwind at some point, and it might not even be right before bed. It might be earlier in the day where you're just taking 20 minutes to yourself to literally not get stimulated by anything world, because everything is stimulating us, to get your thoughts out and process those. That could actually help a lot, like hours later when you go to sleep. That's just a little hack a lot of people don't think about, because we're just on all day. Cool, man. So sleep and stress, very important as well to losing weight. We're going on an hour and a half. So this has been pretty epic, and it's been fun. And we covered, a vast majority of topics. There's probably even more we could have covered. So, people can check out our shows. I had a blast covering all this. I hope people listening will take one thing, you don't have to do all 20, just take like one thing that resonated with you and take that baby step and action forward, and, do the hard thing. Like we said, it's going to be a little bit hard, but that's where the beauty comes from the process. Anything you want to say before we sign off?
No, I mean, we covered a vast array of topics. So obviously, you listen to it, you only get like 20% of what you listened to the first time. So you listen to it again, you get another 20%. So you can kind of get more of it. I think.
Wait. Listen to it on both podcasts.
Oh yeah, I've got that.
Yeah.
I said the most important thing. The most important thing you can do is to subscribe to both podcasts.
There you go.
Because you're gonna keep hearing this information over and over again. So this is great. Listen to this. Awesome. Share this with everyone you know. Listen to Wits and Weights. Listen to the Power of Progress. Wherever you're at, subscribe. There's YouTube. There's Apple Podcasts. There's Spotify. Because the more you listen to it, the more you're gonna gain the knowledge, gain the experience, gain the confidence, and you're gonna start seeing results long term. And it's literally completely free to do all of that. So that's the most important thing you can do today, is subscribe to both shows, because you're going to get the most information. And that's the best ROI of today's episode.
There you go. I don't think I can add to that. I was going to say, go follow Power of Progress, go follow Wits and Weights, wherever you're listening to this, in your favorite app. Give us a follow. That'll really help us a lot. Don't just download it. Give it a follow, share, and we'll be there in your ears for, our beautiful resonant voices to carry you along your fitness journey for months and years to come, right?
I think you have the nice voice. I have that like nasally annoying voice.
No,
so
man,
they listen to me on 3x speed to get it over with.
Oh, don't get me started on listening quickly. That's another way you can de-stress, is actually don't listen too fast. It's funny because my voice is kind of torn up now. So, all right. So I just want to thank everybody for listening. I want to thank you for joining me and Scott on this very cool co-hosted, co-created experience. Today's was valuable, I hope, and we covered a lot. And I hope you take that step, whatever it is. Reach out to us as well. All that information is in the show notes if you need any help, and we'll be here to help you. And we'll talk to you next time on Wits and Weights and
the Power of Progress.
All right, take it easy and stay strong.